there.
Hey there.
We're Sean and Allison from Spoken Garden, and we're partnering with Eden Brothers to help you in your garden.
Yeah, we're going to help you plant your pepper seeds step by step.
Yeah, but before we get to that, it's really helpful to know that peppers are a warm season crop, and they can take anywhere from 60 to 90 days to fully mature. And it's really fun to know that they can be considered drought tolerant after they mature.
Yeah, these plants are great. Now, pepper plants will need to have full sun, and they'll need well-draining, loamy soil that has a neutral pH. So make sure to find that site in your garden before you plant the seeds. Now also, pepper plants generally are hardy in zones 4 through 10, and so you'll need to make sure that you either sow these outside and direct sow them after the threat of frost has passed, or, which is better, to sow them indoors, especially if you live in a cold climate. Now, the pepper seeds we're going to be sowing today are called Cuban peppers, and they're a sweet and mild pepper. They're thin and crunchy, and they're great to use in frying or quick cooking. So these Cuban peppers will get about 6 inches in length, and that's going to be great to see a little bit later on. Now, the thing to know about peppers is they're generally pest tolerant, but they are susceptible to different mildews. So you're going to want to grow them in dry and warm areas.
Before we show you how to sow your pepper seeds, let's talk about when to sow them so you can plan ahead and know when to get started. 8 to 10 weeks before your last frost date in your area is the ideal time to sow these indoors. And you want to sow your pepper seeds indoors because then there won't be any risk of frost in your area. Plus, you can keep an eye on the temperature, which needs to be 70 degrees Fahrenheit or higher for best germination. It's normal to start your pepper seeds in January or even February. Some gardeners start their seeds even as early as November of the previous year. And eventually you will transplant them outside into the ground when the temperature and the conditions are favorable, but we'll get into transplanting a little bit later. All right, let's get these pepper seeds sown. The first step is to get your soil ready for planting. We're using seed cell trays here, as you can see, and the soil is already pre-moistened. The next step is to get ready for sowing. It's helpful to use a tool like a seed dibber like we have here. This is our tool we created called the Dibby XL. Next, each seed needs to be planted at a depth of 1/4 of an inch. So right now we're using our Dibby XL dibber tool to make small indentations in each cell. Next, carefully remove your seeds from the packet and drop 1 to 2 seeds into each planting hole. Next, carefully cover each of the holes with soil. Finally, gently moisten the top of the soil to start the germination process. And that's how you sow your pepper seeds indoors.
Now, once your seedlings start to grow and they get about 2 to 3 inches tall, or they have 2 sets of true leaves on the top portion of them, you can start to think about transplanting them. But you need to meet 3 requirements before you can transplant them out into your garden. The first one being your nighttime temperatures need to be consistently 65 degrees. The second requirement is that the threat of frost needs to have passed. Now, the third requirement is that you're going to need to harden off your seedlings for at least the next 2 weeks. Now, to harden off your seedlings, you're going to need to bring them outside from their indoor location and set them out in a nice open area in speckled sunlight. You don't want to put them in full sunlight just yet. Now, over the next 2 weeks, you're going to expose them for about an hour and then gradually increase them that time. Now, after about a week of the 2-week span, you can start exposing them to full sunlight and still gradually keep them outside longer and longer. And then for the last couple nights, you'll want to have them outside during the nighttime too, continuously outside. And then after that period, you'll be able to transplant them directly out into your garden. So once your seedlings have been hardened off, they can come out into the garden, be planted in your garden beds. You're going to need to space them 18 to 24 inches apart like we have here. Now, before you transplant your plants, pre-dig your hole and water the bottom of the hole so you pre-moisten the soil, so right when the plant gets planted in there, the roots will have some water readily available. Take your seedling and put it in your hole. Now, what you're going to need to do is match this soil level that it was planted in and what it germinated in to the soil level that it's being planted into. So we're going to hold our seedling right there as we bring all the soil back into this hole. And then we're going to nicely, gently tamp this down, and we've matched up those soil levels there, which is exactly what you want to do. Then we're going to create a berm around this newly planted plant, so once it rains, or once it's watered, it'll collect the water to this point where all those new roots need to develop and get this plant established. The very last step is to water your plant in. Now try not to water the leaves because we don't want to enable any mildew or any other pests to come in and start hurting and growing on the plant. Now, after you transplant your pepper plants out into the garden, it's a great idea to place cages directly over the top of them so they have a chance to grow up through them. You don't want to place a cage over a more mature pepper plant because you run the risk of damaging stems, leaves, and even the fruit. Keep the area weeded and make sure your plants aren't competing with other weed plants for nutrients and water. A good idea is to mulch around your plants so then the moisture stays in the soil longer and it's more readily available to your pepper plants. Also, keep an eye out for pests and diseases through the growing season.
Right, let's get ready to harvest those peppers. You can expect to harvest them 60 to 90 days after sowing. You'll know they're ready to harvest because the fruit size should be about 6 inches long. It's best practice to harvest in the early morning. A mature Cubanelle pepper can be harvested when it's fully grown and it also is still green. If you want a sweeter tasting pepper, don't harvest them until they turn orange or almost red.
Now, if you need more pepper or vegetable growing, planting, or harvesting advice, you can always go to EdenBrothers.com and check out their planting guides.
And we hope this video was really helpful for you in planting your own pepper seeds. And from us at Spoken Garden and Eden Brothers, thank you for watching.